I'm a 27-year-old woman named Harper, and for the past year, I've been living in what I now call the party house, though technically, it's just a rental with 3 other people. My older cousin Lauren is 29, her fiancé Mason is 30, and Mason's best friend since college, Brett, is 31. When I first moved in, it was supposed to be temporary. I was switching careers and needed somewhere affordable while I figured out my next steps. Lauren offered me the guest room with cheap rent and a promise of a chill vibe and shared responsibilities. The first month felt fine. The fridge was usually full, everyone was friendly, and we'd sometimes watch Netflix together. Then the parties started. Not once a month, not even every other weekend, every single Saturday night, without fail, sometimes even on Fridays. And they weren't your average small get-togethers. They were full-on events with Bluetooth speakers blasting music until 3 a.m., a dozen people crowding the kitchen, and booze flowing like they owned a brewery. It didn't take long for me to notice a pattern. I'd wake up Sunday morning to find beer bottles lined up along the windowsills, greasy pizza boxes still open on the table, and red Solo cups on literally every flat surface. The floor would be sticky, couch cushions on the floor, random strangers' jackets on my dining chairs. I didn't throw a single one of those parties. I wasn't even invited. They'd call them intimate friend events or adult nights and somehow justify excluding me, even though I lived there. The worst part? Nobody asked me to clean. They just assumed I would. They'd leave post-it notes like, "Thanks for helping out, Harper. You're the best," taped to the fridge or my door, like I'd volunteered to be the post-party cleanup crew. One morning, I found an open bag of chips dumped on the rug and a note that said, "Could you vacuum when you get a sec?" Like it was just part of my day-to-day duties. I tried setting boundaries early on. I said I wasn't comfortable with cleaning up other people's messes, especially since I wasn't part of the gatherings. Lauren brushed it off. She told me I was too rigid and needed to loosen up. Mason told me it was just a phase and that creatives like them were messy by nature. Brett didn't say much, but he'd make passive comments like, "The house always looks so amazing after your magic touch." I didn't have a magic touch. I had Lysol wipes and resentment. One time, after someone vomited on the bathroom wall, yes, the wall, I cleaned it up. I didn't even get a thank you in person. Instead, they left a $5 Starbucks gift card on my pillow, like I just pet sat their cat. I couldn't even buy a full drink with it. It was like a parody of appreciation. Meanwhile, online, they painted the house like it was a bohemian dream. Lauren posted photos of fairy lights and carefully placed succulents on Instagram with captions like, "Home is where the creativity flows." In every shot, it was my living room, my bookshelf, my throw blanket, but not once was I tagged or mentioned. In real life, I was a background character in their curated image. What made it worse was that I wasn't even living there for free. I paid 1/4 of the rent and utilities, bought my own groceries, and had a set of dishes I kept in a separate cabinet. That didn't stop them from using my stuff. I'd find my plates crusted with dried cheese or my forks in Mason's cereal bowl in the sink. I started keeping some things in my room just to avoid the hassle. I thought about moving out more than once, but with job instability and savings that barely covered emergencies, it wasn't realistic. And since I wasn't on the lease, I had no real power. I felt stuck, trapped in a house where I was expected to clean up after people I couldn't even stand to be in the same room with. 2 weeks ago, I was walking down the hallway and heard Lauren and Mason talking in the kitchen. They were discussing which realtor photos to use and whether to list the house as a boho minimalist retreat. I stopped in my tracks. Nobody had told me they were planning to sell. No heads up, no warning. They were planning an open house tour for Saturday, and I wasn't even part of the conversation. It was clear what the plan was. They were going to show off the house as this peaceful, artsy home and use my cleaning work to make it sparkle. They'd let strangers walk through, admire the spotless floors and neat counters, and never mention that the person who actually made it livable wasn't even on the lease. They weren't even going to tell me. Just pretend I didn't exist. That was the breaking point. If they wanted to showcase the house I cleaned, they were going to get a very different kind of presentation. I had 5 days to make my own plan, and for once, it didn't involve scrubbing their dishes or vacuuming beer crumbs off the carpet. They had ignored me for months. Now they'd finally notice me, just not in the way they expected. The night after I heard them talking about the open house, I went straight to Lauren and Mason. I stood in the doorway while they were watching some home renovation show and asked if they were planning to sell the house and when they planned on letting me know. Lauren barely paused the show before saying it was just a casual walkthrough with someone Mason knew. I didn't say anything at first. I just reached into the kitchen drawer where Mason kept all the junk mail and pulled out the flyer I'd found earlier in his bag. Full color, glossy paper, the works. At the top in bold font, fully renovated boho oasis. Open house this Saturday, 3 p.m. There was even a blurb about the home's impeccable minimalist interior and artistic touches. That shut them up. Mason got up and grabbed the flyer out of my hand like I'd stolen his mail. He said I wasn't on the lease, so I wasn't technically involved in anything regarding the property. That was the part that hit hardest. Lauren tried to make it sound softer by saying they were just trying to test interest, but it was obvious they'd been planning this behind my back. I told them if they wanted the house to look clean and show-ready, they could handle it on their own. I said I wouldn't be lifting a finger this time. Lauren rolled her eyes and said I was just better at it, and that it made more sense for me to do it. Like it was a group project, and I was the only one who'd ever read the assignment. From that night on, I started collecting everything. I turned on voice recording on my phone during conversations. Our state only required one-party consent, and I made sure to double-check before doing it. I started taking screenshots of old texts they'd sent me over the past year. Ones like, "Can you work your magic again before the guests arrive?" Or, "You're our house goddess, LOL. I backed it all up in a hidden folder and set it to auto-upload to cloud storage. That weekend, they hosted another party, a big one. Loud music, people I'd never seen before, drinks everywhere. I stayed locked in my room with headphones on. By Monday morning, the place looked like someone had hosted a concert inside a dorm. Empty wine bottles on the stairs, pizza crusts on the kitchen island, and what looked like dried guacamole smeared into the armrest of the couch. I didn't touch a thing. On the kitchen counter, there was a note that read, "Please make it sparkle before Friday. Realtor walkthrough next week. You're a lifesaver," with a smiley face. I left the note where it was and walked out the door to get a sandwich. Tuesday afternoon, the real estate agent showed up. I kept out of sight in my room but heard the front door open, followed by her very clear voice saying, "Oh no." A few minutes later, I heard Lauren trying to explain the mess by saying their roommate had been under the weather and that everything would be cleaned by the weekend. After the agent left, Lauren started dropping hints again. A Swiffer mop was leaning against my bedroom door when I came back from a walk. A bottle of Pine Sol had been placed in the middle of my bathroom counter like it lived there. I moved both items into the hallway and kept the door locked. That evening, Brett cornered me in the kitchen with a drink in hand. He said the house wouldn't be the same without my magic touch, and that I was the one who kept things running. I told him if by running he meant picking up after 3 adults like I was their cleaner, then maybe it was time for the system to crash. By Wednesday, they had sent out messages in the group chat announcing a prep night for Thursday. The plan was for everyone to help tidy the place before Saturday's open house. I replied once, saying I had plans that night. Lauren sent me a thumbs-up reaction, which I didn't respond to. But I didn't go anywhere. I stayed in and watched. They did nothing. They lit a few candles, moved some pillows around, and stacked dishes in the sink like that somehow counted as cleaning. I watched Brett rinse out 1 glass and leave 2 others behind. Mason vacuumed half of the living room and then went back to watching a documentary. Lauren took some photos on her phone of the bookshelf and posted them with a filter that made everything look brighter than it was. At 11:30 that night, I sent a single message in the group chat. "If you're relying on me to clean for Saturday, consider making other plans." All 3 of them saw the message. None of them replied. Just 3 read receipts glowing back at me. That was the moment everything locked into place. I got out a notebook and started making a checklist. Nothing illegal, nothing that could get me in trouble. Just enough to make sure the house they planned to parade around would finally reflect what it looked like without me. If they wanted messy, I'd give them messy. But this time, it would be on purpose. At 5 a.m. on Friday, I got up, tied my hair back, and started my version of open house prep. First stop, the kitchen. I opened the fridge, pulled out every single thing I owned, milk, juice, fruit, yogurt, and took it to my room. Everything that wasn't mine, I left it where it was. Half-used ketchup bottles, expired hummus, a Tupperware of something green and fuzzy. I made sure everything was front and center. The worst offender was a carton of almond milk from the previous month. I set that on the top shelf where the realtor would definitely see it. Next stop was the main bathroom. Lauren always bragged about how she turned it into a self-care spa space. I dumped an entire container of glitter into the sink, the kind that sticks to everything, the kind that no vacuum can fully catch. The entire basin shimmered like a glitter bomb went off. I unhooked the toilet paper roll and dropped it in the sink. The water soaked through the roll, and I tossed the empty holder under the cabinet. I didn't leave any replacements. Down the hallway, I went into the laundry area and grabbed the basket that Mason and Brett used. They always left it full. Inside was a pile of gym clothes, damp socks, stained tank tops, 2 towels. I dragged the basket into the living room and flipped it over onto the floor in front of the couch. In the kitchen, I grabbed the container of leftover fish from Wednesday. I microwaved it for 2 minutes and cracked the lid open just enough to let the smell drift. I set it on the counter near the coffee machine, where the scent would build all day. Then I went to work on the dining room. I didn't break anything. I just nudged every chair a few inches off alignment. I twisted one of the legs on a bar stool just slightly so it wobbled. I swapped 2 of the throw pillows on the couch and propped them up unevenly. Upstairs in the bathroom that Lauren used, I gathered her entire scented candle collection, 10 or 12 in total. She arranged them like a display in a boutique. I moved them all into the shower. I didn't light them, didn't damage them. Just placed them on the shower floor in a strange formation, like a summoning circle. She would absolutely notice. In the kitchen again, I tackled the spice rack. I peeled off every single label and reapplied them in random spots. Oregano became paprika. Cinnamon was now chili powder. It wouldn't ruin anything, but the confusion would be instant. In the hallway mirror, I took a bar of soap and wrote in big, sloppy letters, "Clean me yourself." I underlined it twice. The soap smudged just enough to make the words look greasy and uneven. Below the mirror, I scattered a few tissues from my sleeve just to add to the chaos. In the pantry, I found a box of rice and opened it carefully. I didn't dump it, just scattered a thin layer across the bottom shelf and left the box slightly open. It looked careless and sloppy without being destructive. I ended with the artwork. Every framed piece, photos, prints, one original canvas Lauren was proud of, I turned upside down. It wasn't immediate chaos, but the longer you looked around, the more it felt off, disjointed. Like the place was slowly coming apart. I went back to my room and wiped down every surface. I made my bed, vacuumed the rug, cleaned the window. I left a note on my door that read, "Not for sale, not your maid." Taped it right under my name tag that Lauren had once made for fun. At 10 a.m., I was brushing my teeth when I heard footsteps pounding down the stairs. Lauren's voice cracked through the house. She stopped dead at the bottom of the stairs. Mason followed close behind, still half asleep. Lauren's robe sleeves were dragging, and she froze like she stepped into another dimension. Mason bent down to grab a gym sock off the floor and stared at it like he wasn't sure if it was his. Brett came in a minute later, holding his phone, still blinking from sleep. His eyes went from the glitter sink to the spilled laundry to the fish container on the counter. He didn't say anything, just stood there. The whole room was dead silent. I zipped up my duffel bag, walked past the 3 of them without stopping, and stepped out the front door. No one tried to follow. I got in my car, pulled out of the driveway, and headed to Morgan's place across town. She'd already made space on her couch for the weekend and stocked the fridge with snacks. That house was no longer my problem for the next 2 days. Whatever they planned to do with their open house, they were going to do it without me. and without a single clean corner to hide behind. By Saturday morning, they still hadn't canceled the open house. Even with everything upside down and glitter still coating the sink, Lauren was convinced it could be salvaged. She told the others it was just cosmetic stuff and said they could spin the look as quirky or artsy lived in. At 11 a.m., they hired an emergency cleaning service. Weekend rates? Rush job. But the fastest they could get a team in was 2 p.m., just 1 hour before showtime. While that was happening, Lauren jumped on Instagram. Her stories were a trail of dramatic quotes. Some people will try to tear down what they can't build, and jealousy is loud, success is silent. She posted a slow pan of a corner of the living room that had been cleaned, using a sparkle filter and a caption that said, "Open house vibes." Meanwhile, the other half of the room still had socks on the floor and a half-used candle collection sitting in the shower upstairs. At noon, the real estate agent arrived. She walked through the front door, stopped dead at the fish smell, and stepped back outside. She called it a disaster zone. She asked if the house was still under construction or if a prank had taken place. Lauren tried to laugh it off and explain that someone had pulled a fast one, but it was clear the agent wasn't amused. At 12:30 p.m., my phone started blowing up. First from Mason, then Brett, then Lauren. They were blaming each other through texts. Mason said I'd embarrassed Lauren in front of a key buyer. Brett said none of this would have happened if they'd just listened. Lauren claimed it wasn't her job to police roommates. I didn't respond right away. I just opened my camera roll, grabbed screenshots of old messages they'd sent me, like "You're our cleaning queen," and "You always make the house shine, we owe you one," and sent them back in one image dump. Then I added the voice memo I'd recorded 2 weeks ago, where Lauren said, "We'll just make Harper clean it up again." She always does. I didn't even add commentary. Just sent the files and turned my phone on Do Not Disturb. At around 1:45 p.m., the cleaners finally arrived. 2 of them. They looked confused when they saw the note on my bedroom door and the mess everywhere else. They worked fast, but the glitter in the sink stayed, the fish smell lingered, and the artwork was still upside down. The cleaner in charge told Mason there wasn't enough time to do a full reset. They wiped surfaces and pushed laundry into closets. By 3:15 p.m., buyers started arriving. The front walkway had some potted plants arranged nicely, but the moment they stepped inside, the mood changed. One woman in a navy pantsuit walked in, looked around once, muttered, "Who lives like this?" and walked right back out. A couple near the fireplace whispered to each other while pointing at a stained throw blanket. Someone asked Lauren if there had been a recent burglary. The energy shifted fast. It went from awkward silence to open commentary. One person asked why the dining chairs didn't match. Another pointed out a faint sour smell coming from the kitchen. Someone else laughed when they saw the upside-down artwork and asked if it was supposed to be avant-garde. The agent tried to redirect people to the backyard, but even the patio furniture looked disorganized. Lauren started sweating through her shirt. Mason just kept handing out flyers like that would fix it. What I didn't expect was Brett snapping. According to Morgan, who showed up pretending to be a buyer, he pulled Lauren into the kitchen and told her this was all her fault. He said I'd given them fair warning, and she'd just ignored it. Morgan told me he raised his voice, something he rarely did, and the real estate agent overheard the whole thing. Morgan stayed the entire time, walking around with her phone in hand, texting me updates. She said at least 6 people walked in and then walked right back out without even looking upstairs. She also got a photo of Lauren sitting on the grass in the backyard with her face in her hands. That picture alone made it worth it. By the end of the event, the real estate agent pulled Lauren aside. She said she wasn't putting her name on another showing unless the entire place was cleaned properly and professional repairs were made to undo the visual damage. She specifically mentioned the glitter, the smell, and the disorganized presentation. The final blow came when one of the serious buyers, a man who had toured the house earlier in the week, officially pulled out. He said it looked nothing like the version he'd been promised and that it was clearly a misrepresentation. He left without taking a brochure. Lauren stood at the edge of the driveway crying as his car pulled away. That night, I uploaded the voice memo of Lauren saying, "We'll just make Harper clean it up again." It was only 20 seconds long, but it landed in the right Facebook group, one that Morgan helped run. Within an hour, it was shared dozens of times. People started asking who Harper was. One person commented, "Why does every artsy house have one unpaid intern holding it together?" Another said, "She's the ghost of housekeeping present." The meltdown was public, and it was only getting started. Sunday morning started with a long text from Lauren. 5 paragraphs, no greeting. She blamed everything on stress, hormones, and what she called the emotional trauma of betrayal. The message didn't include a single apology, not even a sentence that took responsibility. Just a full breakdown of how she had been hurt by the energy shift in the house. Less than 2 hours later, Mason texted. He asked if I'd be open to an adult conversation at Starbucks and said he'd even pay for my drink. I sent one message back, "I don't drink coffee with people who treat me like staff." Then I muted the thread and left it unread after that. My mother called after lunch. She had seen the voice memo clip posted on the Facebook group. Morgan had shared it in a community thread about housing rights. My mom never liked Lauren. She once referred to her as performative hospitality in leggings. On the phone, all she said was, "You finally stood up for yourself. I'm proud," and then asked if I was eating enough. By Monday morning, Mason made another move, this time by email. He threatened to pursue household disruption claims and said I had violated the peaceful enjoyment of the property. I replied with a one-liner reminding him that I wasn't on the lease. I also attached screenshots showing texts from the last year that proved how regularly they assigned me cleaning duties. I copied the landlord on the reply. What I didn't expect was the landlord showing up that afternoon. He knocked, unannounced, clipboard in hand. According to Mason, the landlord had seen the Facebook video too. He wasn't happy. Not with me, but with them. He told Lauren and Mason the house was not to be listed for sale, promoted, or altered without written permission. He also asked who gave the real estate agent access. Lauren tried blaming me. He turned to me and asked directly. I told him everything and then forwarded him the photos, text logs, and both voice recordings. That same day, Lauren tried to get a refund from the emergency cleaning service. She claimed the crew had done a poor job and left the house smelling worse than before. The company refused. Apparently, once they marked the job as biohazard adjacent due to the fish smell, refunds weren't allowed. Lauren filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. She posted about it online, but someone in the comments asked why her house needed a biohazard crew in the first place. By Tuesday, the real estate agent quit. She sent an email officially cutting ties and cited professional misrepresentation and tenant interference. Mason called it slander. Lauren called it sabotage. Brett didn't say anything, but someone later forwarded me a text where he said he wasn't surprised. On Wednesday, 2 more potential buyers who had been interested before the open house stopped responding. Mason called one of them directly and was told the house felt chaotic. Lauren stood in the kitchen and shouted that I had ruined their financial future. Brett tried to argue that maybe the house wasn't ready to be sold anyway. That didn't go over well. That evening, my aunt, Lauren's mother, showed up with a plastic container of muffins. She said she came to check in and meet it. She asked if I was going through something. I told her I was going through the consequences of being fed up. She sat awkwardly at the kitchen counter for 10 minutes before saying she had to leave for a church meeting, even though I knew she wasn't religious. Later that night, Morgan texted me a screenshot. Apparently, the 3 of them made a new group chat without me. They accidentally added her instead of someone named Maddie. Morgan took one look at the thread, mostly complaining about me, and left it with a one-word message, yikes. By Thursday morning, the house had been relisted online. Same agent name removed. New price listed at $25,000 less than before. The new description didn't include the words boho or minimalist. It now read, unique home with creative touches and opportunity for customization. Mason blamed the price drop on what he called the unfortunate incident. I decided it was time to be cautious, just in case they pushed further. I booked a legal consultation with a local attorney and showed her everything, screenshots, audio, photos, and all the text exchanges. She went over it carefully and said I was in the clear. I wasn't on the lease, I hadn't caused physical damage, and the documentation showed a clear pattern of mistreatment. If they tried anything, she said it would be considered frivolous. That same evening, I posted another short clip. This time it was a voice recording of Brett from the week before, saying, "She better clean before Saturday or we're screwed." I added a caption underneath, "Guess who didn't clean?" It spread fast across the same local Facebook group. Someone in the comments said, "You can't build your dream home on someone else's unpaid labor." By Friday morning, the group chat with Mason, Lauren, and Brett went quiet. I didn't hear from any of them for the rest of the weekend. Not a single apology, not a single word of gratitude, just silence, and the sound of their dream listing collapsing one line item at a time. Monday morning started with a folded letter pushed under my door. It was typed in a blocky font, printed on plain paper, and signed by Mason. It said I was being formally asked to vacate within 7 days due to behavior that disrupted household harmony. There was no legal header, no mention of the landlord, no official documentation, just Mason trying to act like he had any authority over who stayed or left. I scanned the letter and sent it to the landlord along with a brief message asking if this counted as an actual notice. 2 hours later, he rang the doorbell. He came inside, asked to speak to all of us, and made it clear only he could end tenancy agreements. He said I wasn't being evicted, and in fact, he was going to be replacing them as tenants. Apparently, he had been quietly reviewing everything I'd sent, photos, texts, recordings, and decided he no longer wanted to renew their lease when it expired next month. He offered me a short-term lease extension while he searched for new tenants. He even reduced the rent slightly and said he was looking for people who don't treat others like their disposable background help. Mason stood silent. Lauren tried to argue that it wasn't fair to replace long-term tenants. The landlord shut it down fast. By the time Lauren realized she had no leverage left, she blew up. She got into a screaming match with the landlord right there in the living room. She called him unprofessional and accused him of taking sides. He just stared at her and said, "Biased against narcissists? Maybe," and walked out the front door. 2 days later, Brett packed up and left. No drama, no noise. He texted me one sentence before leaving, "I'm tired of being looped into Lauren's drama." Then he moved in with his girlfriend across town. Lauren barely acknowledged he was gone. Mason said Brett was bailing. I just watched him carry out a box of vinyl records and close the door behind him without saying goodbye to anyone else. On Thursday, Morgan sent me a screenshot from a corporate bulletin board. Someone had forwarded the viral audio clip of Mason to his employer, likely from the Facebook group. Mason was called into a meeting with Human Resources. I didn't submit anything myself, but apparently others did. Morgan said one of her friends who worked in the same building overheard someone in HR say, "It's always the ones who think they're in charge." That same week, Lauren launched a new Instagram account. The handle was something like boho meets zen, and the bio said minimalist living, interior inspo, let's grow together. Her posts were recycled shots of the house, taken from angles that hid the mess. But it didn't take long for people to find it. Every post was swarmed with comments like maybe start by cleaning your mirror or house goddess in shambles. The account lost more followers than it gained. Morgan told me 2 of Lauren's close friends blocked her on social media after she tried explaining the situation in a group chat. Apparently, she framed it like I lashed out after being jealous of their success. One of the friends left the chat and the other sent Morgan a thumbs up emoji with no context. Word was getting around. On Friday afternoon, Lauren knocked on my door again. She had puffy eyes, mascara smudged, and a tear-stained sweater. She started saying something about having a dark moment and trying to hold everything together. I didn't let her finish. I closed the door and turned the lock. Later that night, the former real estate agent posted on her business Facebook page. It wasn't direct, but the message was clear, lesson learned. Never again working with delusional DIY landlords who believe lavender candles and denial can replace a professional cleaner. It got over 300 likes and dozens of supportive comments. Another surprise came the next morning when someone leaked a group chat Mason had with a few of his friends. In it, he called me a vindictive freeloader and complained that I manipulated public opinion like a soap opera villain. That group chat screenshot landed on Reddit and spread fast. The replies weren't kind. One said, "If this is what freeloading looks like, I'll take 2. Another wrote, "Imagine being so lazy you outsource your entire reputation." In the middle of all that, a producer from a local podcast about tenant rights reached out. They were doing a series on rental horror stories and asked if I'd be interested in anonymously sharing my experience. I haven't decided yet, but I haven't said no either. Later that weekend, my parents got a call from Lauren's parents trying to arrange a family meeting. They wanted to sit everyone down and resolve the miscommunication. My dad cut them off and told them to lose his number. He blocked them afterwards so they couldn't follow up. By Friday, the moving trucks arrived. I sat on the porch as Mason and Lauren carried boxes down the steps. Neither one spoke to me. Mason avoided eye contact completely. Lauren gave me one long glare before slamming the van door. The truck pulled out of the driveway just before sunset. I stayed seated on the porch, a glass of lemonade in hand, watching as their dream house listing drove away with them. I stayed right where I was, in the quiet, clean house they no longer controlled. The first week after Mason and Lauren moved out, the house didn't feel like the same place. There was no thudding bass shaking the walls at 2 a.m., no trail of half-eaten burritos on the kitchen counter, no half-hearted Swiffers left against my door. The sink was empty. The hallway was quiet. The air didn't smell like a mix of weed and burning patchouli. For the first time since I moved in, the place actually felt like a house and not a frat-themed Airbnb experiment gone wrong. The landlord followed through. He emailed me a new short-term lease, discounted rent in exchange for keeping the place clean and presentable while he interviewed long-term tenants. He made it clear he wasn't interested in influencer aesthetics or community-based boho artist collectives, just real adults who wouldn't build a personality around eucalyptus bundles and Pinterest quotes. I started deep cleaning out of habit more than anything else. During one of those clean sweeps through the kitchen drawers, I found a notebook wedged under a stack of old placemats, spiral-bound, pink cover, and a little wine-stained. It was Lauren's. Inside were notes about color palettes and Instagram hashtags. On one page, she'd written goal, redecorate to boost home value, and in the margin, Harper will obviously clean it. I didn't say anything. I just tore that page out and slipped it into my desk drawer. They weren't quite done trying. Lauren emailed me one last time. Subject line, a letter from the heart. The body was a monologue about ruined friendships, lost dreams, and how I had torn apart a home for the sake of a power trip. I printed it out, poured a glass of wine, read it once, then shredded it line by line. Meanwhile, the house started getting real attention. With no mess to hide behind, the listing photos came out sharp. The furniture was balanced, the lighting was natural, and the living room didn't look like it had hosted a furniture tossing contest. The landlord got 2 solid offers in 1 week, both above the new listing price. He called it What Happens When Peace Lives in a Place. The podcast episode aired the following weekend. I kept it anonymous. My voice was changed, name omitted. The title was The House Cleaner Who Snapped. It got picked up in a few local forums and made the rounds on tenant rights pages. Within a week, it passed 80,000 plays. I started getting messages from people who dealt with similar situations, roommates dumping chores on them, passive-aggressive house dynamics, and what to do when you live with people who think you're invisible. A few asked me for advice. One person even messaged saying they printed out one of my quotes and stuck it on their fridge. Lauren's social media didn't survive. Someone online stitched together screenshots of her boho boss babe posts from earlier in the year and matched them with photos from the failed open house. The contrast hit hard. A thread on Twitter called it Instagram BS Reality, Suburban Chaos Edition. It went viral overnight. By the next morning, her Instagram was gone. Mason didn't come out unscathed either. His company didn't fire him, but word got around. After the clips floated through internal circles, human resources reassigned him. He was moved into a non-client-facing role, stripped of any team leadership, and told to focus on behind-the-scenes support tasks. From what I heard, the title changed, but the salary didn't. A quiet demotion, but a demotion all the same. Brett reached out about a week later. This time, it wasn't performative. No justifications. No trying to make himself sound better. Just a straight-up apology. He admitted he let laziness and comfort get in the way of doing the right thing. I told him I appreciated it. I also told him we weren't friends and wouldn't be again. He understood and didn't push. A few days after that, Lauren's mother sent me a fruit basket. No card at first, just a plastic-wrapped collection of apples and pears. Underneath, taped to the bottom, was a handwritten note that read, "Families fight, but they don't destroy each other." I dropped the basket off at a local food pantry on my lunch break and threw the note in the nearest trash can on my way out. With the house quiet and no more chaos to dodge, I started looking for places. I found a small studio across town. 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, but no one else's laundry on the bathroom floor. No Sunday mornings cleaning glitter out of tile grout. The first thing I moved in was my own set of dishes, untouched, spotless, and mine. On the final day in the old house, I went room to room, wiped every surface, vacuumed twice, cleaned the baseboards. I left it gleaming. Then I taped 1 photo on the fridge, the mess from the morning after my revenge, glitter sink and all. On the back I wrote, "Before your open house, love your unpaid cleaner." The landlord stopped by that afternoon. He walked through the empty house, checked every room, and texted me as I pulled away, "You were the only one who ever treated this place like a home. Good luck out there." I locked the door one last time and dropped the key in the mailbox slot. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to clean, nothing left to fix. I wasn't just walking away from a rental. I was leaving behind every version of myself that let people pretend I didn't matter.